Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm not celebrating, though, until I can hug my grandbabies. I was waiting for that day. Hopefully, that will be soon, but thank you. Last night, as you know, the Senate passed important legislation. We're very proud of the product. We think it is, we did jujitsu on it, that it went from a corporate first proposal that the Republicans put forth in the Senate to a workers first, Democratic workers first legislation. But let's first back up. As I was coming here, I saw that nearly 1,000 deaths in the United States, 900 yesterday, so I don't know what the number is today, but they're saying nearly 1,000 deaths in our country. Tens of thousands of people we have tens of thousands of cases. This is a pandemic that we haven't even seen for over 100 years in our country. It's really such a tragedy. So we had to take important action. We had to take action, though, that puts families first and workers first. And that's what we did when we did our first legislation. The first two bills were about addressing the emergency directly. $8.3 billion for research, for vaccine, for a cure. And that's, of course, the light at the end of the tunnel. But funding for testing, very important so that we know we can take inventory of the challenge that we face, and more importantly, that we can address each family's concerns about this. The next bill was about masks, so that we can test, among other things. Emergency. The bill that was passed in the Senate last night and that we will take up tomorrow is about mitigation for all the loss that we have in our economy while still addressing the emergency health needs that we have in our country. And next, we'll go from emergency mitigation to recovery in terms of where we go to grow the economy, to create more jobs in light of the reality that we've just been through. So right now we have the legislation that will come to the floor tomorrow. I anticipate and feel certain that we will have a strong bipartisan vote. And we take some pride in the fact that, as I said earlier, congressional Democrats in the Senate and in the House were able to flip this over from corporate trickle-down Republican version to bubble-up worker first, families first legislation. Again, we have some other things we want to do, but first we want to take pride in what happens there. For workers, we were able to get, of course, extended from what the Republicans wanted, and expanded unemployment insurance. This is so very, very important. Of course, in terms of funds that go to major corporations or companies or anyone, the direct condition is that, for example, with the airlines, that the money that is given to the airlines is given to the workers directly. Just a pass through. It goes directly to the workers, and have some conditions on for other money that goes to any of these companies, that they have no buybacks, no dividends, no bonuses, all of those kinds of concerns are so offensive that happened before with federal funds infused into their entities. So we're very happy about all of that. One of the differences, as I said, they're corporate down, we're bubble up from workers. I think was demonstrated last night. Can you believe that I think it was every Republican, I think 49 Republicans last night voted in the Senate to deprive those on unemployment insurance of the additional $600 a week. How could it be that in this time of stress and strain and uncertainty about health and life and livelihood, that they would vote that way? But I think it does demonstrate the point that I made, that not about workers first. But the bill got to be there, and I thank the Senate Democrats for using the leverage they have with the 60 votes. I take pride in what we had in our House bill that is in the Senate bill now. So for workers and for families, with all three of our bills, we have put families and workers first. we again, I hope that the UI will. Right now, we want people to take advantage of all of this quickly. The UI will depend on how the states do it, and they're not all uniform, but we want people to know exactly how they can benefit from that, and we're putting that all together so all of our members on both sides of the aisle can know how they can facilitate enabling their constituents to take advantage of the opportunities there. So again, the bill last night and tomorrow will be a large infusion of funds for hospitals, health systems, and state and local governments. We want more, this was a big, strong state, but we need more. Small businesses, so proud of the work of all of our chairmen. They were just dazzling in their knowledge, their strategy, their just their experience in getting the right kind of bill passed, even though, again, compromising, not getting everything we want, but recognizing that we won the day. Small business want fast relief. Small business, they have meant for rent, mortgage, utility costs, eligible for SBA loan forgiveness. I salute Congresswoman, Madam Chair Nydia Velázquez for what she was able to accomplish there. Students, we secured billions of emergency education funding. Thank you, Bobby Scott, on our team, and our appropriators, Rosa DeLoro, Anita Lowy, et cetera, doing so much work there. Oh, don't get me started on naming my members. I'll be talking about all of them. I will, and you'll see how they are. They present tomorrow on the floor. And we have oversight. You know, there was this idea that they put forth that there would be a $500 billion slush fund for the Secretary of the Treasury with no accountability whatsoever. Are you kidding? With all respect in the world for this secretary, that was not a complete non-starter. So I'm pleased that language that was in the House bill and in the Senate bill it has an inspector general specifically for that account, and also a congressional panel of 5 people appointed by the leaders to oversee how that funding is dispersed. Comes back down, though, to the fact that people are at risk. As I say, tens of thousands cases, nearly 1,000 deaths in the United States. I've said from the start that we must have a proposal that is government-wide, science-based, so that we can really address the challenge that we face in a scientific, evidence-based way. That is not necessarily the course that has been advocated by some, but it's where we must be if we're going to end this. From a scientific standpoint, we have the best minds working 24/7, all hands on deck to find a cure, which is, of course, the light at the end of the tunnel. But if we do not heed the advice of the scientific community about isolation and avoiding as much communal contact as possible, in fact, none, then the light at the end of the tunnel may be a train coming at us, the proverbial train. And we cannot, every day, every week that is wasted on not taking that warning seriously is a problem. It's a problem. So let us thank our men and women who our healthcare providers, our first responders, our emergency service people, firefighters, and the rest who are not only responding to this, but initiating their own efforts, sometimes risking their lives to save others' lives. We need to get them more personal protective equipment. It's absolutely essential, and it is a shortfall right now. We would hope that the government production of the Defense Production Office agency would be called upon to call upon industry to convert to making ventilators and the rest. Testing, mask, ventilators. What's the mystery? We need many more. And a ventilator, just for your information, is not about making you breathe easier. It's making you breathe, period. It is vital to life and death in many cases. So we need an unlimited number, let's think of it that way, endless number of ventilators, and just to name one thing. But everyone, the farmers, the producers, the grocers, everyone who's keeping America fed, our truck drivers, postal workers, delivery people, everyone who is making this survival possible, we thank. And again, we thank our scientists for striving to find a cure. So tomorrow we will go to the floor for this legislation, but as I have said, there's so many things we didn't get in any of these bills yet in the way that we need to. So the next step would be, well, among other things, we want to have more better definition of who qualifies for family and medical leave. I can give you some examples if you wish. A stronger OSHA protections for our workers, essential to life. Pensions, we had a proposal on pensions in the legislation that my understanding was, and I trust it is true, that the president supported, but Senator McConnell wouldn't do it, but said we'll do it in the next bill. So we're ready for that. Increased SNAP. One disappointment in the bill was they would not increase. We were asking for a 15% increase in food stamps at this very fragile time for many families. They wouldn't do that in this bill. More money for state and local governments. That could be, I spoke with the secretary this morning about how we're just not doing enough for state and local government. That's just the way it is. We had $200 billion in our bill. We end up with 150, but neither of those figures is really enough. But we're hoping, and I mentioned to him that the Fed, and I talked to Chairman Powell about this, that they would expand the opportunity for, shall we say, helping out state and local government, municipalities, and the rest. In the bill, we call for that, but really permissively enabling the secretary to do it, but not requiring him to do it. And the administration did not want the requirement, but they say that that is what they intend to do. We'll see, and hopefully that is the case, but we're still going to need to have more money for state and local governments, municipalities, and the rest. Then one of the important things that we have to insist upon, we said free testing, free testing, free testing. But with free testing is the visit to the doctor's office, the treatment that goes with it, and that has to be free as well, so that we encourage people to be tested, and if they are and they need treatment, they're not fearing the test because they can't afford the treatment. This is all a public health issue. It's in everyone's issue that everyone be tested who needs to be tested. Not everyone, but who qualifies to be tested, but that they do not incur a huge deductible or whatever, co-payment, whatever, for being tested and have the follow-up treatment. And then there's just one other, this came as kind of a, I don't want to say a surprise because nothing surprises me around here, but it was curious that in this bill, they decided to treat the District of Columbia in a very discriminatory way. It really makes no sense unless you have some other motivation. The District of Columbia has always been treated like a state in terms of distribution of funds, and under that formulation, they would have gotten well over $1 million, maybe $1.25 million or so. And under the formula, they just decided to treat them like a territory now, and they get maybe $500 million less. I don't know exact figures, but it's very significant. Say it's a third less than what they are getting when they're fighting this challenge here in the District of Columbia. It doesn't make any sense, and we have to have legislation. I don't know if you saw Senator Chris Van Hollen last night during the debate spelling this out. I know it's of concern to Steny and to Mr. Connolly and Mr. Beyer and our colleagues from this region, Mr. Raskin, well, the list goes on, but it doesn't face the realities of a public health crisis that we have in our country, and goes out of its way to do something so out of the ordinary. Let's just hope it was. Well, it was a decision. It wasn't an accident. It was a decision. So let's make a decision to correct that. But again, let us all be very prayerful about how we go forward. We want the American people not only to wash their hands regularly and hydrate all the time. But to understand that we view them as our bosses. They are our bosses. We are responsible to them. On Sunday morning, when we met with the M's, McConnell, Mnuchin, McCarthy, Chuck and I were there, and I said, since it's Sunday morning, why don't we begin with a prayer? My part of it, not their part, my part of it. I'll begin with a prayer. His Holiness Pope Francis called for a world prayer. I won't do it justice, but what he did was to pray that those who have the responsibility to care for others would be enlightened to take that responsibility and act upon it. When I finished my prayer, the secretary said, well, you've quoted Pope Francis. I'll quote the markets. So that's kind of how God knows we want the markets to succeed. That's very important. Markets are not going to succeed unless we take care of people and we restore their health, whether there's a cure or whether there's a behavior that reduces this tragedy in our country. But let us work together in the most bipartisan way possible to get the job done as soon as possible. It won't happen unless we respect science, science, science. And for those who say we choose prayer over science, I say science is an answer to our prayers. Any questions?
Madam Speaker, a lot of Americans have heard a lot about the direct payments that they're getting as part of this bill. Yeah. And the biggest question they have is, when are we going to see these checks? Why not approve this bill by unanimous consent so that American families don't have to wait even a moment longer to get this money in their bank accounts?
Thank you for your question. The two are completely unrelated. It has nothing to do with unanimous consent. Tomorrow we'll bring the bill to the floor. It will pass. It will pass with a strong bipartisan support. I spoke to the secretary about this today. I said, why don't we do the direct payments technologically so that they can be received more immediately? I don't know if that's their plan, but I hope that it would be. But the people are eager for them. We had bigger direct payments in our bill. I don't think we've seen the end of direct payments. But with all respect to your question, it has nothing to do with unanimous consent. I don't think we will get unanimous consent. I think there's some people on the other side of the aisle who are coming here would object to that. But we're not worried about that. Our members want to come back in order to have the debate, and we expect to have a voice vote on it. But if we don't, we'll be prepared for whatever it is. But one way or another, with losing no time with the UC or anything else, we will be passing the bill tomorrow. So thank you.
Madam Speaker, what would you say to Americans that have concerns about these loans given to corporations? Why could these corporations seek private loans? And isn't it a moral hazard to bail them out? Shouldn't they have been more conservative with their cash flow to be able to weather this storm?
Well, everything that we do in this bill is about the workers. And so where there is any transfer of funds to any entity, it is for them to keep their workers employed or pay benefits to their employees. So nothing is going to anybody without conditions.
But some of these CEOs are making upwards
Well,
of
but
$18 million
that's another issue. We can't deal with that now, but we did prohibit. And thank you for your question. So I can say again, the conditions include preventing any buybacks, all the things that they did in previous times when they had resources, just use that money to enrich themselves in terms of dividends, bonuses, and the rest. And there are some considerations about CEO pay in all of this. But this is an opportunity for us to have the leverage switch from the top, from trickle down from corporate headquarters to bubble up from the assembly room floor. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You've already started talking about the next phase.
Yes.
How quickly do you think that bill needs to come together? How big do you anticipate it will be? And do you intend to work on it from Washington or from California? And finally, who should take the lead on it, the House or the Senate?
Well, we'll be taking the lead. I think right now what we're advocating is, we took the lead on some, they took one. We really should be operating four corners, the four House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, as we go along to find as much common ground as we can. But I'll be working on most of it from here, but also with my committees. In the course of this whole thing, my committees were outstanding. The committee chairs were, as I said, dazzling in their knowledge and brilliance about how to get the job done, and they made a tremendous difference. Of course, we didn't get everything we wanted, but it's a compromise. We did very well, and that's why I got a call yesterday from some of the on the other Senate side, not on the Democratic side, saying these members think that it's too much of a Democratic bill. What can I say? So in any case, we'll go through the committees. Bobby Scott of the Education and Labor Committee, which oversees family and medical leave, will be working on that, as will be the appropriators, Rosa DeLauro, and that will work House and Senate. We have the legislation with Patty Murray that they rejected, but we'll bring it back. The OSHA is also from that committee. The OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health issues, are very important, more important at this time than any time anybody can remember, because people are going into an infectious situation. So we'll be having our by phone, and perhaps even beyond that, have our meetings to bring that together. But in this case, it's going to be public sentiment. People say, well, why do we need another bill? We need it because the health workers working in those settings need it. We need it because of a family. For example, if your mom, bless her heart, I don't know if she's
healthy.
Wonderful. So she's healthy.
Isolated.
Okay. So if your mom, for example, if your mom were in in a day senior health center where you take them in a day and they get the health needs and all that, and then come home, or was at home and had a health care provider in the home, and because of the coronavirus, those two entities, one would close and the other could not come, you would be able to take family and medical leave to care for your mom. If your mom's well and she gets the coronavirus, you can't take off work to care for her and get family and medical leave because those two conditions were not met. We strove to have them say those who cannot take care of themselves, but they wouldn't accept that language. But it doesn't make sense, does it? So anyway, we want to improve on that and improve how many other people would avail themselves of it. So again, these are needs that people have. This is all, understand this about this. It's really important to know this. This is all about the coronavirus. It's not about anything else. It's about the coronavirus. So this is temporary for this period of time. And it's important to know that, because people say, well, why should we do it? Because of the coronavirus. It's a public health issue, and we have to keep people as healthy as we can, and family medical leave is one way to do that. And then some of the other issues that I meant, that what they're getting tested, then they should have not to pay a high copay for the other services that go with that test at this time. When we're talking about of course, the direct payments are directly related to this. So, but just to that point, we want to engage the public in that discussion. The timing is interesting because I see the Senate said they were leaving until the 20th of April. I guess that's after the Easter and Passover. I think everybody has to be on call for what we need when we need it, and we don't know what that might be. But whatever it is, we'll be ready.
A question and a half. Do you anticipate?
Is that allowed? A question and a half?
Do you anticipate having unanimous support from your Democrats tomorrow on this bill?
Yes. Well, let me say this. I'm not asking any. We will have a victory tomorrow for America's workers. If somebody has a different point of view, they can put it in the record. But we're not worried about that.
The other question was, Governor Cuomo yesterday expressed a lot of concern that...
Which one was the half?
That was the half. Yes, that was the half. Governor Cuomo yesterday said he's really worried about his state budget, that the money in this bill isn't going to go nearly far enough to fill the hole. Other states will likely have that problem. Do you think the next bill you're going to have to dedicate significantly more, essentially to bail out state governments who cannot do this on their own and can't run a deficit?
Well, thank you for your question. I did have the occasion to have the benefit of the governor's thinking yesterday. So, and I have the enormous respect for him. I think he's doing a spectacular job at what he is doing, and it's something we've never seen before. But I also see that with my own governor, Gavin Newsom in California. They remind me of each other in terms of they're so values-based and they're determined to do the right thing and respecting the dignity and worth of every person. But it takes money, and we have, thanks to Jerry Brown, a big budget surplus in California, which is going to be eaten away by this. So it's not a question of bailing out states. It's a question of meeting the needs of the people, and that's our responsibility to do. He called it a drop in the bucket. Well, it's several $7 billion, and it isn't anywhere near enough, but it's still $7 billion, several billion, I think like 5.6 billion, something for New York. We have to do more. And if we don't face that reality, and we're encouraging the states then to give money to localities as well, because they, in our situation in California, for example, San Francisco provides a lot of the cities and counties provide a lot of the care throughout the country, and meeting the needs, whatever they are, on a public health issue. So there's no question that more money will be needed. Now, can we do it through the Fed and some low to no interest lending to the states? Let's see what they can do. And that was my conversation with the secretary this morning about, I wish it were more required rather than permissive for the Fed to do that. They preferred this route, which I respect. Now let's get it done. But make no mistake, all the states around the country, we talk about New York, California, look at Louisiana, which is now ground zero for the world in terms of the explosion of this challenge in the world. And they reference some of that to Mardi Gras and the rest, but we'll see. I mean, I have grandchildren all over the country, as you probably know, one who goes to school in New Orleans, so I watch that pretty carefully. Well, I watch the whole country. So in any event, the challenge is there. The interest rates are low. The chairman of the Fed, Mr. Powell, said to me, the interest rates are as low as they'll ever be. Think big, because whatever you borrow to do with this is going to be at the lowest interest. What we did last night and what we will do tomorrow, $2 trillion, is about the cost of the tax scam that the Republicans foisted on the nation to give 83% of the benefits to the top 1%, whatever it was, plus the interest on the loan, on the debt. Indebting our kids and their future, paying the bill for tax breaks for the high end. Said it was going to pay for itself. It never does. Said it was going to create jobs. It didn't. However, this is an emergency, a challenge to the conscience as well as the budget of our country. And every dollar that we spend is an investment in the lives and the livelihood of the American people. We can go bigger, especially now the interest rates are even lower than at the time of the tax scam. So it isn't even, it's like I gave you a dime for a cup of coffee. It doesn't cost a dime anymore. It costs much more. Let's recognize that reality. But again, let's do it in a way that stays focused on the kitchen tables of America's families, their needs, their concerns, and how we can, again, meet those needs, as Pope Francis told us to take responsibility for. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
as I know, Pelosi's still saying voice vote.
Okay, so Rebecca's gonna bring them to us. Also, I gotta say, these emails are not helpful. But
What?
off the record, I can't get anything fine. Like, why did you feel the need to email it to 50,000 people? Off the record, I have nothing to add or say, and I just felt the need to send you an email about it. Everything. Four exclamation points in your forward email, one for each word. It's great Caroline email.
At least I have clapping hands.
Mine is hey, period.
Still good morning. I just listened to the speaker, and I want to join with you in wishing her a very happy birthday today. Now, across America, people are coming together. They are making sacrifices and lifting each other up. This is actually who we are as a nation. There are countless stories of kindness we see cities throughout and through our communities, and that should make us all proud of who we are as Americans. In this battle, we are all neighbors, and that is an unbreakable bond that will help us get through this. And then you have our real heroes every single day who we are watching. We cannot thank the medical professionals enough, putting themselves on the front line to care for all of us. Our postal workers, our truck drivers, and our supermarket workers who are there for us, along with the warehouse operators and the drivers working in the gig economy that are helping keep small businesses afloat. They are on the front lines, helping us push through this challenge, and we could not be more grateful for all their sacrifices that they are putting through. Our job in Congress should be to reinforce their efforts, and that is what we'll do with the CARE Act when this is accomplished. The legislation we are passing will directly assist, and let's walk through 4 main points. The American family with individual checks. You listen to Treasury Secretary Mnuchin say, even as today, that he'll be able to get these checks out starting within 3 weeks. The American worker, expanding unemployment insurance to cover the gig workers and the self-employed and the nonprofit employees as well. If unfortunately someone finds themselves out of work, this bill offers an additional 13 weeks of unemployment. Healthcare workers in hospitals, another $140 billion of appropriations. We know they need the assistance from the most rural hospitals to the largest. Businesses, and especially focusing on the small businesses. They will provide the resources so they can rehire, and the federal government will provide that as a grant to get America working again and keep them afloat with their rent, and as we get through this, to even make them stronger. For the large-sized businesses, we give them a tax incentive where the taxpayers could actually help and assist to keep people working in that situation too by securing the loan, guaranteeing, but more importantly, giving them a tax credit for the employee paying up to almost 50% for those 2 months. I urge the members of all of you in the press to help us explain this to the American public. Let them know what resources are out there so they could be able to seek it and find the help that they need. We are working for every American in this country, and we want them to know that help is on the way. Sadly, though, there are some individuals in Congress who, even in the midst of a pandemic, think this is a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit their own vision. They're more focused on dividing us rather than trying to bring this country together. Those people want to debate election law, Green New Deal, or sanctuary cities. In a bill that is meant to assist those who are struggling families, our health, and our security. Every day matters as we debated a solution that would deliver much-needed relief. We just watched in the last week 3.28 million people laid off. That's higher, multiplying higher than we ever watched in the financial crisis. The speaker herself just said every day, every week that is wasted on not taking this seriously is a problem. I could not agree more. And yet for days, Democrats stalled this bill. How many people were laid off as the Democrats fought to change the election law or implement the Green New Deal? How many parents lost sleep wondering how they were going to make the payments on the next month? How many small businesses sat around a kitchen table and had to make that decision they never had to before about laying their employees off that are like family? A few minutes ago, the speaker stood at this podium and claimed that House Democrats did what she called a jiu-jitsu to change the bill. That is an outright lie. The fundamental portions of this bill has not changed since Sunday. 4 months for unemployment was already decided on Sunday. The grant to keep employees hired on small business was already decided on Sunday. The only few additions were funding of things that had nothing to do with the coronavirus. Was that worth holding it up and more people being laid off? More people losing sleep? More people wondering if they can continue? Those are the type of games that have to stop in Washington. She spent time thanking her members on wins. America's suffering does not care to hear about these superficial and fabricated claims. This is not another day in Congress. This is a time when we have to come together to deliver real results. What Democrats did was a total disgrace. History will not be kind to the days that added to the millions who were unemployed simply because they wanted to change the election law, put a Green New Deal, and thought it was a tremendous opportunity to change the direction and the vision of this country based upon their philosophical beliefs. You know, I'm reminded of a story that when President Kennedy decided to challenge this nation to go to the moon in the next decade, when the Soviet Union was ahead of us, he gave this country one mission: to make it to the moon in the next 10 years. A year later, he went to tour NASA, and as he was greeting different people who worked there, he came upon a janitor. And he shook this janitor's hand and he asked him, "What is your job here?" The janitor replied, "My job is to put a man on the moon before the decade's out." At this moment in time, not just Congress, but every single American, from that medical professional that's risking their lives to treat others, or that truck driver who drives at night to try to refill the supermarket, or a supermarket worker working through day and night to replenish the shelves and give us the products that we need. They didn't want to see a delay in this bill because somebody thought they had an opportunity to change an election law to benefit them, or hold out because they wanted the Green New Deal. What America wants to see is that we actually care. And I've said it before. As a father, a husband, and a son, my first responsibility is the health, the safety, and the security of this nation. And yes, every day and every minute wasted is a disgrace. That's why I'm thankful that finally, the bill we had Sunday, 99.9% of it, is the bill that we'll have tomorrow. And let's never see somebody try to take a crisis for their own political gain. Let's put this country first. With that, I'll open it up for questions. Yes?
What's your message to any member who is thinking of objecting to the voice vote tomorrow, which is a procedure that enables some of your members to say they instead of travel?
Look, I'll talk to Republicans and Democrats. I've heard AOC. I've read something where she's thinking that she might do that. I think that is wrong. We are going to have the opportunity to read the bill. I know it came out late last night. We've been keeping our members abreast of where the bill's at, having worked on the bill for numerous days. They'll have the ability to read the text as well. We'll have debate, and then we'll have a voice vote. I do not think there's a need for anything else. Yes.
How many members do you expect, roughly? Do you think there'll be?
I'm not sure. We have members on both sides of the aisle who have the virus. We have members who are quarantined. We have members who have challenges with airlines that are getting their flights canceled. So I think there will be enough to make sure we get this through. But the floor will look different. The microphones down in the well will not be there. They should not be that close to the clerks who work there. The microphone in the middle across will be taken out. So what you'll have is those who are managing the bill will be further away. Members can't sit next to each other. And as one person speaks, you're going to have to come back and clean. So if member wants to come on the floor, they can't sit next to each other, but they can't be moving in and out. We'll have to clean the area of where they are. They'll enter in one door and they'll have to leave another. We want to make sure we're providing the health for everybody else inside to make sure government's working. So there will be more than enough. There's more than enough time to debate. There's more than enough time to review the bill, and it should not be delayed getting to the president's desk for this week.
Leader, ever since details came out about this bill, there's been a lot of criticism about erroneous items being put into it for the Kennedy Center, things like that. But you touched on it a little bit about voting requirements. Some are say that the voting requirements that the House Speaker wants to put in will make it vulnerable for corruption.
No, people voice votes all the time. There's nothing there. But the Speaker did, when she wants to claim about a victory and she wants to ask all of her Democrats what she succeeded on, she added $24 million more to the Kennedy Center. I happen to sit on the board. I support the Kennedy Center, but this is not the place and time to hold a bill up for the health care of America to provide money for the Kennedy Center. That was wrong, but that's what her win was. It didn't extend any of the unemployment insurance. That was already decided on Sunday. It didn't change about providing people to stay on the job when a small business. That was already decided. Or a larger to be able to keep somebody there. The provisions of where we were going. None of that was added. She added a union provision and she added money for the Kennedy Center. I believed at the end of the day this should just focus on the health, safety, and security of Americans when it came to the coronavirus. Let's make sure that those hospitals got the resources. Let's make sure those who are laid off, they got money to pay their rent so we don't have a real estate challenge. Or those who are laid off, let's incentivize the small business owner to actually bring them back on. How do you do that? Government is providing them the resources as a grant to rehire them, or the incentive to keep you working as we get through this virus so we're stronger on the other side. We just watched 3.28 million Americans get a question and an answer they did not want to hear when they went to work, while we watched Democrats stall a bill that could have solved that problem. Yes?
A number of states, particularly New York, are saying that what they are going to be getting is simply not enough. Is Congress looking at a package going forward in the future now? This is our third package. This will be probably the largest bill anybody in Congress has ever voted for. I would first look at this bill, and it's focused in 4 areas that are very smart. The health, so within the hospitals and others. For the states, we don't leave others out. We bring in nonprofits and others into the assistance. The small business that employs so many millions of Americans that are making that decision where they're shut down today, that will give them the resources of a loan, but will make the portion of it of a grant for your rent and your employees, incentivizing you to keep those employees working, that those employees will get their paycheck, be able to pay their house payment, be able to buy their groceries. That's the key. Now, if you're off, the uninsured, that first week you usually had to wait. No, you'll get that payment. We'll pick that up. Federal government even puts in another $600. So no, it does a lot in the process to get us through this time period as we fight this virus. Yes.
Can I follow up on that? Because it sounds like you think this is enough. How do you assess whether it's enough for the American worker that this bill covers them against the harm?
Well, the first you have to do is you have to let the bill work. Before I could answer the question, is it enough? We've done 3 different bills. The first one was a supplemental that you made sure you got the resources, the NIH and CDC, the extra that they needed. The next bill actually went in to make sure the worker and the testing was paid for, that you could be able to have their health. Those are just now being implemented. Now you have more than $2 trillion going into the economy to the areas that we know are needed, and you're sitting here talking about needing another bill? If these bills are done correctly, let them put them to work to get through this. If something's needed in the future, let's make that decision. But let's not make that decision without allowing these bills to be put into the economy. Yes?
It might be too early to talk about this, but do you envision this experience triggering any permanent changes in the House? For example, remote voting, maybe continuing social distancing even when things calm down?
Only time will tell. Hopefully, through this, we'll learn to wash our hands more. The flu season will be less, maybe because of that. But I hope that one thing that we'll seriously look at as a Congress, the supply chain. Something the President has talked about quite some time, but people did not realize. As we're working trying to get the PPEs for the hospital, China controls too much of our supply chain. Congress has too much control of the ingredients that will go into our medicines, too much control of our medical equipment, too much control of our critical minerals. As a nation, we should redirect that and make sure that we can take care of ourselves and not be put in this situation again. Had China not lied to the rest of the world and would have allowed individuals of our researchers, our doctors, and our best scientists, we could have contained this into China. Now it's throughout the world where thousands of people are dying. just because they were worried about a reputation instead about the health of their own people. Yes?
The Senate has said that they're going to be out until April 20th is anticipated. Does the House have a similar schedule? Will that be announced when the House?
You know, I'm not in the majority. I don't get to determine that. I've had many conversations with the majority leader and with the speaker, and we talked about best ways of moving this bill forward. They get the final decision. But I agree with what the majority leader decided at the end of the day. Allow debate, and debate will look different on that floor, as I said, from the physical places of where you debated, but it gives the member the opportunity to discuss the bill and what's in it.
A quick follow-up on that. The speaker said that there will be remote working on another package possibly. Do you anticipate also working remotely? Will you be in Washington? What are you encouraging your members to do?
Well, one thing, I encourage them to be home and take care of their communities. That we got this bill through, make sure that it works well, make sure we're keeping people employed, making sure the hospitals have what they needed through the resources here. On this bill itself that we wrote, a lot of our members worked with the Senate counterparts, and we did a lot of conferences like that. I wouldn't be so quick to say you have to write something else. Let's let this bill work. It's just as long as we let the other two bills work as well. And whatever decision we have to make going forward, let's do it with knowledge. Let's do it with the experience of what's on the ground at that moment in time. So we're actually aiming before we make the bill go forward on anything new. But we could work remotely when it comes to some ideas. But at the end of the day, Congress will be back here. Will we be out for a while? Probably. But this nation will come back together. Just as Kennedy had challenged us to go to the moon, and the ingenuity, the integrity of who we are, and the inspiration as a nation, we got there. We will get through this as well. Think for one moment of the new things that are happening. It took us more than 2 years to be in a clinical trial for a vaccine for SARS. We are already in that clinical trial for a vaccine to this virus. The number of new medicines and therapies that are coming online. The FDA working in a whole new capacity of bringing opportunities through us from testing and others. We will be stronger at the end of the day to compete against anything else like this in the future. Yes?
Kind of on the same note, but kind of on a different one. You said that a number of your members had worked with members of the Senate putting this package together. We know that one of them was Congressman Meadows, who is still a member of your caucus, but he said he'll be resigning at the end of the month. Do you have any statement on that?
Well, I wish Mark Meadows very well. He was a very good member. He'll make a great chief of staff. And I think having him as chief of staff only makes the relationship stronger for the House and Senate with the White House. And he's had great relationships on both sides of the aisle, too. So it's a benefit to all.
One last,
yes, go right ahead.
I just want to follow up on that as far as Jonathan Meadows, but as
yes.
far as the packages are concerned. Now, you have just a number of states which have essentially just shut down all businesses across their states, and for indefinite
outside of essentials.
Well, we're talking about indefinite periods of time. How do you expect for any of these packages to essentially work where you have all of these businesses essentially across these states that are shut down? People don't know when their businesses are going to be able to start up again, and how is that going to essentially work with any of these packages when people are essentially just not working, period, and they're essentially clueless as to when their businesses are going to be able to open up again?
That's a fabulous question. I hope everybody listened to that question. What do you do while states are shut down, small businesses are ordered to stop working, and people are questioning whether they're going to get paid? Well, the CARE Act is going to make a major difference about it. They don't have to do something about it. It's going to come right to them. Those individuals by income level are going to see a direct payment from government, so they're going to get resources. Those small businesses are going to be able, even though they're shut down, provide that loan and that portion of a grant to hire those people who are not working right now but still will get paid for the next 2 months by the federal government. They won't have to pay that back. So if they take 100% of those employees back, they'll get a 100% grant. They'll be able to pay their rent. So there's not a crisis when it comes to the landlord and others and went into the banks. Those larger businesses are going to be able to get a secure loan. They got a tax advantage in there that the federal government will help them pay up to almost 50% of that employee for the next 2 months. So while we are shut down and while they are wondering, that's why this bill is so important. All those elements I just spoke about, Those were all agreed to back on Sunday. Now, they're delayed another week, but a week is a lifetime when you're shut down. That's the difference. Yes?
Where do you stand on this emerging debate on how soon we should start to ease up on this social distancing and let people get back to work?
You know what? I would look at it every single day. I watched Governor Cuomo look at doubling every 2 days to 3 days, now to 4 days. So what we're doing is working. The determination of when you come out of that, I would follow the numbers when it is safe. But the one thing we know is what we're doing is working, and we will eventually get out of this. I don't know that you could predetermine the exact date. I would look at the data, and I know that's what the president is doing. Thank you all very much.